Hello, and welcome to Chapter 6, one of the hardest chapters of this Vestaria Saga low turn count playthrough. While I have no doubt that this map was intended to be a bit of a breather after Chapter 5, it's just about fighting some weak bandits, escorting a wagon, nothing too bad, not too many complicated events. Due to several very strange things about this map, it is one of the hardest in the game to LTC. And our flyers are going to have to do some real heavy lifting on player phase, not just counterattacking. Which is why you just saw Yeri repair a Doyen that's still at 11 uses. You may think this is a waste of repair, and it kind of is, but also she'll need literally every player phase action after a certain point and doesn't have time to stop the Doyen from breaking once she gets going. So this is a wagon escort mission, and you might think that means that there's a hard turn floor, but that's not quite true, because if you route this map, then all of a sudden the movement of the wagon goes up a lot, and if you can route this entire map by turn 6, you can finish the map in 12 turns. But there are two things that make this extremely challenging. The first is that there are many areas of the map that only the two Eagle Riders can reach in time, and though we trained them some last chapter, they still aren't great. They need very strong weapons to kill. Even a cutlass isn't enough for the weaker one, which in our case is Yeri. She needs the Doyen. And they also have bad bulk. They get 2-hit KO'd by a lot of the axe fighters, the same method with the snipers, etc. But what's even worse about this map is that you could rig a lot of dodges, but normally enemies run into you and get themselves killed on enemy phase. But for some reason, all the enemies, or almost all of the enemies, on the top half of the map have their AI tied to an ambush that happens near the cave in the middle of the map, around turn 7 typically. Until then, they have a strange AI where not only do they elect not to charge you, but they won't even attack you if you're in range. You literally have to wait right next to them if you want to counterattack on enemy phase. And since many of them are kind of spread out, this means we need to make full use of both Canto and player phase and enemy phase attacks. And all of this culminates in focusing on the top left area, and once Rubina and Yeri are done clearing their respective parts of the map, to take down the bosses there, which are quite strong. Not as much action is happening on the center of the map. We just need to ensure that the wagon full moves every turn, and also that the path is clear enough for Merida to get where she needs to be in time. That cluster of 3 enemies you see there is only reachable by a strong cavalry unit. Here, Ash's promotion puts in wonders, because we need some people to go off cliffs and some people with 1 to 2 range. And also with his 7 move, Ash can't perfectly keep up with Merida, but he can do well enough to clear the way as the gap between them gets bigger and bigger. So, we are about to get to the really rough part of this map. There was a lot of rigging involved in this clear. I think I reset about 20 times just replaying turns 5 and 6 of this map again and again. And the reason is that the last area, the enemies there, are awful. Despite getting really good luck on some of the level ups on the Eagle Riders, they still cannot one-round the 2 rightmost axe fighters. They each have about 38 health and pretty good bulk. Thankfully, Yeri does have activation skills in the form of multi-chance, which has about a 30% chance of proccing, and also an appreciable crit rate with the Doyen, as long as she's within the support range of Rubina. However, Rubina also needs to proc Wrath occasionally, and there's a 25% chance of her getting a crit on a counterattack like that. Across 4 attacks, the odds aren't too bad, but she needs to trigger it multiple times. So when you just combine all of these decent probabilities, it just becomes extremely unlikely for everything to work out correctly. And another strange thing about the enemy AI here is that I don't know if this is normal or varies from playthrough to playthrough. The AI on this map is sort of a mystery to me. but initially I wanted to focus down the sword lion on player phase with the Doyen on Yeri, but to take him down because he has a cutlass, and unlike the other ones, once you attack him for the first time, he will go and chase after you, and with a cutlass he can easily kill either of our Eagle Riders if they're even a little bit injured. But for whatever reason, the axe fighter that Yeri burst down this turn simply would not attack me, even though I was standing right next to him. So I had to do this more unreliably. But thankfully, though it looks pretty simple now, all the kills that Davina's doing, a lot of resets went into this. Even Merida has an okay chance of missing some of those attacks. Like, it's not huge, but it's another thing that further adds unreliability. And this is the ambush, which would normally proc normal AI from the enemies in the north. But once you've routed all the enemies once, it doesn't matter if more spawn, they're still not going to bother you. Well, they are going to bother you, but they aren't going to, more accurately, they aren't going to reduce the move of the wagon. So, after this is done, there's not much left to say. We clear out some of the reinforcements, distribute more kills to the Eagle Riders in Merida, though the Eagle Riders are about as strong as they're ever going to get at this point. And there are also 2 items in the top right that we need to grab. There's a status curing item, and there's also a liquid vitality, which we once again put in the convoy for purposes that will become clear very soon. I promise I'm not a hoarder. I am not a scrub. Look at my turn counts. So there was a strange disaster towards the end of this map, which is that my computer started freaking out and actually temporarily crashed, and I had a bit of a heart attack because after 20 tries, 15 to 20 tries, I finally got the run I dreamed of, with everything working out, and then all of a sudden it crashed. But thankfully, most of my clear was caught in the video at the end. The last few turns you don't see, but it's just running forward and grabbing a few things, so I feel at peace not showing you that detail, even though this is technically a lack of transparency on my part. Once again, my apologies for the abrupt transition to Chapter 7, but after the bore you're in store for, you probably will not blame me for this. Or, well, you won't begrudge me too much. Instead of talking about this chapter, which I'll do later and very briefly, I'm now going to talk about a unit who we neglected to discuss earlier, Lilia. Lilia is a staff user. Unlike Athol, she only has 4 move, but she can promote, upon which she gets 5 move, and the ability to use magic, though it never really amounts to much. Lilia is a very important unit, and she's so important, in fact, that we stipulate rules about this run, just because of how important she can be. There's a skill in Vestaria Saga called Industry, which gives units with it a 15% chance to move twice, and at certain points in the game, this drastically changes the sort of turn counts you can look for, and also would drastically increase the amount I have to reset to get the right industry proc. And because that would be very annoying, I've decided to ban myself from using industry, so you will see some times where Lilia could technically use again, but I don't, I just leave her standing there. So now onto this map. There's not much to say. You basically walk to the left with Zaid, and then you walk back. There's nobody stopping you really on the way there besides some scrub skeletons who barely pose a threat to you. And on the way back, well, there is a threat that you can neutralize almost immediately if you know that it's coming. So maybe this map works out for you if you're blind to playing it the first time, but for me, it's a snore. There is an okay shop that Jean just visited, which sells thief repeaters, which are low might brave bows. They aren't quite as good as you would expect, but I bought a few just for when bow users aren't using their proof weapons. But in the top right is where most of the action of this map actually takes place. There are a bunch of marauding raiders who are trying to destroy all of the huts in the village to the north, and if they succeed, we lose the map, though. This takes a very long amount of time. This map can have as many as 3 different objectives in a row. First, you move to the left and you either talk to or kill the necromancer, so-called necromancer. We talk to him because it allows us to recruit a unit, and we're doing full recruitment. And then if you don't talk to him, you move up and talk to Silton to end the map, or you can go back to the church and fight the evil people who are actually tricking us right now. And after that, if you haven't routed the enemies in the top right, Zaid will have to go through some weird tunnel, taking damage along the way, and then you have to route them. But since we want the map to end as soon as Zaid gets back to the church, we do have to route them, and only a few of our units can get there in time. Obviously, our flyers, who just skip over the mountains, they unfortunately can't fly up straight away because the volcanoes block even flyers. But it's alright, and the other units you can reach are Merida because of her 9 move, and Ash because his light infantry movement type lets him get over this terrain pretty easily, which inhibits a lot of other units. And Caesar also needs to go there to pick up a chest that has a Thawknight to repair. And this group is more than sufficient to deal with the enemies in the top right. Just the Eagle Riders would have a fair bit of trouble because of all the bows there, especially some nasty composite bows that really do a number on them. But they managed to get the ball rolling, pick up a few kills, and then the supporting units arrive. We are about to complete the first objective of this map, which is having Zaid talk to the Necromancer. For whatever reason, when you get close to the Necromancer, the endlessly respawning skeletons no longer attack you, which is pretty good because if they kept on being aggressive, then the one with the sword that paralyzes units could paralyze someone in the wrong space and get in the way and potentially lose a turn. And the last thing I want to do is play more of this awfully dull map. And another reason it's awfully dull is the objective, which is about to come up, which I think is intended to be the real boss of this map, the real challenge, is trivialized in 2 or 3 simple moves. Some totally not recruitable people are good people, apparently. Zaid does have to clear this one out of the way. In retrospect, if he didn't get a crit with Edelstern, that might have cost a turn, but whatever. These things can be rectified by playing again, even though I don't want to play this map at all. I'm trying to find interesting things to say about it, but I really can't. I will remark that some of the dialogue in the little houses by the river is pretty good. One thing I like about some of my favorite dialogue in Vestaria Saga is when random village women talk about how handsome certain men are. There's the famous holy hunk of chivalry line about Troy that I sadly missed, and water extra wet, but there is some pretty good discussion of how handsome a certain character we're going to meet, Nyman Giskal, is, which I appreciate because he's underrated. And here we found out that that entire walk was a lie and completely unnecessary, and we could have just done the right thing by the church 7 turns ago, but which we will do quickly, but Zaid has to walk back. Which is pretty okay for us, because if we could get back more quickly, we might have to struggle to kill all of those riders with the Eagle Knights, and I've had enough of that. So a bunch of monsters spawn. The monsters disappear. We kill their boss, Gwendal, and he's kind of tough, He has a tome that halves damage, but with the incredible might of Zayed, he falls quickly. And that's most of the challenge gone, because even the Dark Mages who don't disappear won't attack. Before we popped him, we did kill one of the enemies who was holding a Masudian brand. Masudian brand is a brave 2-use weapon that has unbelievably high might and accuracy, and deals effective damage to magic units, which is kind of overkill because it would probably murder all of them anyways. And we wanted to pick that up because we could buy it from the shop nearby, but one of the enemies was holding it, so we wanted to kill him before he disappeared. And we're going to use it for a certain boss kill later on, which you're supposed to only be able to do one way, but because the Masudian brand is so strong and accurate, it allows us to substitute it for another. It does look here like the Eagle Riders are in a lot of trouble, but a lot of the time these horse riders will attack random huts instead of going after our units. So we managed to lure the boss away. The boss who nearly one-hit KOs both the Eagle Riders, but we still managed to take him down from the distance with the Doran. And these mages in the bottom right are meekly sitting around ready to accept their fate. And we get doing a lot of kills because he hasn't gone that many levels yet, and it's terrible levels. He's incapable of doing strength. So, in many ways, this chapter, though very boring, is the calm before the storm, because there was a lot of written encounters in Chapter 6, and we're about to go into one of the most unreliable stretches of the game. I may as well spoil who all the stat boosters we've saved are going to. They're going to Holo, base strength to toilet paper durability. Mounted Archer, we're about to get in the next chapter. She would normally not be a good object for investment. There is a map where she's one of the only units on it, but she gets a proof weapon that carries her through that map and allows her to be kind of decent afterwards, but we need her to do basically everything, and really quickly, because such is the spirit of an LTC playthrough. And because she's very bad at doing everything, we need to give her a lot of help. So, despite the fact that she's not going to be useful at all after her chapter, which is chapter 10, we are getting ready in the next 2 maps to go all out and spare no expense to make her as strong as possible. And that involves giving her 2 liquid vitalities and liquid strength, and the diligence tome we just picked up off the boss sitting on the church, which gives a 50% boost to experience. At this point, the map is pretty much over. There are just a few stragglers we have to pick off, and a chest to open. We do thankfully have an opportunity here to feed Merida a kill that we rigged to give strength, because Merida's strength is normally good enough because she gets a lot of levels, and between Dandelion and Cutlasses you don't get the best strength, but Merida is going to be doing a lot for us very soon in Chapter 11, and her strength as it is now just isn't going to cut it. She doesn't need high strength or anything, but just high enough to be able to deal with some of the tougher enemies that populate the route we're going to take. So I was glad to be able to work that in, but nothing else had to be rigged, because I will be rigging a very low strength road a lot in the coming video. But yeah, so this is where the run starts to get real, this stretch of the game, Chapter 6 and so on. Even though the earlier maps can sometimes look interesting, from a low turn count perspective, it is really just limited by how fast Zayd can walk to the throw. And that is sort of how it is in the coming maps, but the process of how that actually works is a lot more intricate, so hopefully it'll give me more to talk about and you more to watch. So, with that, we're going to complete this map in 14 turns, and I will see you next time. with a more high energy and fast going map.